Salutations guys, Shadow Speakerman here. Welcome to your weekly dose of Skibidi news, where we talk about everything regarding the official series, fan-made content, and much more. Whether it's the ton of collabs in the community this last week with the sudden release of the full episode and the copyright strike developments, or the amount of random merch and collabs that have happened, all our news we will cover in this video. So if you'd like to keep up with all of the news in each coming week, make sure to subscribe and turn notifications on, so you'll be alerted every time I upload. With all that being said, let's get into the official news. Real quick thing to point out is that I am apparently keeping the streak going for being in the middle of making a video when Boom decides to drop something. So when there is dialogue about the recent livestream and announcement, I will show it in the top left. Okay, anyways though, back to the news. Only a week after uploading the controversial third part of the 79th episode, Boom decided to drop the full version of episode 79, even though he said it would take a month to complete in this statement on Discord. Unfortunately, upon viewing the full episode, it quickly became apparent that there were even more issues than were originally in part 3. However, before we talk about all the issues, which there is a lot, let's focus on the positives that the full episode brought us. First, it brought us a clean-looking design of the Watchmen of Doom, which combined the best parts of the designs from part 1 and 2, and put them into the current Watchmen of Doom, which is the best looking of the three in my opinion. Next, it brought us improvements to part 3's sound design and transitions in some parts. For instance, the annoying screaming during the battle between Polycephaly and the Astro Hunter was gone, and there were no longer any sudden loud sound effects which would make your ears bleed. And lastly, the full episode brought us our first peek at what the upgraded Titan Speakerman will look like at the very end of the episode. However, now that we are done with the positive, we can focus on what's wrong with this episode and why it's not being received so well. Well, to start off, only half of the animation errors were fixed in the third part, as the Speakerman base is still bugging out in the background. And speaking of animation errors, somehow, someway, part 1 has several horrible animation errors throughout it, despite it remaining relatively untouched aside from the Watchmen of Doom design change. Which is really confusing to the point that it has to be intentional, otherwise it's unexplainable, because how does previous work suddenly become lesser quality? To actually show you the animation drops I'm speaking of, the cameraman base is slightly bugging out when we pan across it for the first time in the episode. Then there is suddenly a massive frame drop right before the scientist begins attacking the Watchmen of Doom. And don't even get me started on when we actually see the scientist. Why did we get this PowerPoint odd transition? Why are the lasers made of silly string? And most importantly, where did the cannon shot go? Why did it fly towards the cameraman base? Whose side are you on, Kleiner? Speaking of Kleiner, he's straight up standing on nothing before nearly getting hit by an invisible cannon blast. But enough of the scientist, because about the Watchmen of Doom's sword, I feel like that could be weird animation, but that's only if it's not just a design choice type situation, so I ain't gonna complain about it. Now for some slight issues which are not really that big of a deal. 1. The dialogue was not reworked despite the entire community not finding it to be that fitting, especially with the Watchmen of Doom having such a sad personality only a few minutes prior in the episode. And 2. The full episode did not have that much extra content at all, which is one of the only times that has happened, as even the full episode of 76, which came out only a day later from the release of part 2, had at least one extra scene. So the full episode of 79 not having any is rather disappointing. So with all of these problems regarding the 79th episode, the community has been in a slight panic since it was uploaded. And the view count has reflected that, unfortunately, as Skibidi Toilet episode 79 is one of the least watched Skibidi Toilet episodes in the series history, with it having less than 10 million views after 10 days, which is a concerning sight to see. So you'd think that in a time like this, when your series is pretty down in both statistics and community feedback, that you would be a bit more communicative on what's going on. Well, all of the responses we have gotten from Boom have either been ChatGPT generated, or we actually got an interesting reply from Boom, where he with no filter sent an audio message in response to someone calling him a clanker. This is a bit concerning to me, as I remember Boom stating somewhere that he doesn't really like to speak without sounding the way he does as Secret Agent. So in other words, without all of the filtration. So for him to suddenly do that for the first time makes me question whether some of what is going on in his struggles are a part of his personal life, and maybe just being tired of how this community has been responding to any slight imperfection the episode has. To which I simply have this to say. While criticism is always important for any growing series to have, hate is not needed, and it is discouraging to see how many people were acting like this is the end of the series, Boom doesn't care anymore, or that Boom was somehow lazy in this episode's creation, which is a wild statement, by the way, because animation is crazy difficult, and even the full episode is nowhere even remotely lazy. So I think instead of hating on the episode, the entire community should just be a bit concerned about how Boom is doing for once, because he has been acting particularly odd since episode 79 released. But finally, to shift our attention away from episode 79, we have a few interesting things to point out in the aftermath of its release. We also had a couple shorts posted by a side channel, which looks extremely similar to Boom's animation style, which shows various Skibidi Toilet characters, not as characters from the series, but rather as their original counterparts from Half-Life in this weird what-if scenario, where what if Skibidi Toilet never happened. Definitely is an odd thing to think about for all of us, not just Boom. Because what if this series never happened? Where would my channel be? What would Boom have done? And we wouldn't have one of the biggest fan-made series on YouTube that we are always excited for it nearly every single day. So if this is from Boom, maybe it's a message that Boom might be accepting or unaccepting what Skibidi Toilet has become, his career. And now he may be redeciding that in his mind through this what-if scenario displayed in the video. But oh well, maybe that just got a bit too serious and I'm looking too much into this. Or maybe I got it all wrong, because upon what has happened today regarding Boom's statement and livestream, perhaps those shorts were meant to reflect on his time using Source Filmmaker to animate Skibidi Toilet. As let's get into the most recent official news regarding Skibidi Toilet, which came out in the middle of me editing this video. Which totally wasn't a video making crisis, by the way. First, let's talk about this important announcement that Boom has posted, which is one of the singular most important things Boom has ever announced. Here it is.
When I started Skibidi Toilet, it was just me and my computer. Every shot, sound, and story beat was mine to figure out. Once it blew up, I locked in completely. I would wake up and start working, go to sleep still thinking about it, and do it all again the next day. Over 2 years later, this series has grown into a universe bigger than I ever imagined. Now, with my partners at Invisible Narratives, I'm stepping into the role of executive producer alongside a full creative team to help take the series to the next level. I've worked with Invisible from early on, and they really understand Skibidi and why people connect to it. These are the people that built franchises like Transformers, and they've always supported the DNA of what makes Skibidi what it is. I'll be shaping the world and directing special episodes, while also working with a team of animators to bring more of this world to life than ever before. It's a step that's about the growth of the series and myself as a creator. It gives me the chance to take on things I never thought possible, like developing a Skibidi event series with Invisible and building new ways for this world to live beyond YouTube. Working with a team is a new experience for me. As you will see, we will be producing episodes using a different set of tools than I've previously used, which means episodes can be made faster, better, and on a bigger scale than before. There are a lot of surprises in store, and I'm excited for you to see where things are going creatively. Just know that I'm grateful to you all for making this possible and for your support. You've brought Skibidi this far, and I'm excited for you to be a part of everything coming next. This next era is going to be peak.
Whoa, there is a lot to unpack from that. So let's start with the biggest thing. Boom's saying that the episodes will be made using a different set of tools, which will make the episodes come out faster, higher quality, and grander scale. While that is definitely the best piece of news a Skibidi Toilet fan could ever receive, especially given all the news we have gone over with all this drama, it is likely that the studio shift will make or break the Skibidi Toilet series on YouTube. Because for the other extremely important piece of news in the announcement, Boom is stepping down from animating everything himself and has actually gotten himself a team, which is again a huge positive, but that also means there is going to be a massive shift in episode 80, as there will not only be a different engine from the SFM style we have grown to love throughout the years, but the episodes will also likely be heavily animated by other people than Boom, so we'll have to get used to that. And all of this differentiality might even extend to designs and such, as the series is stepping away from the limitations of Source and becoming much more original. So to summarize what I said, it is safe to assume that literally everything in the series will be changing in this next upload. However, I expect, just as Boom said at the end of this announcement, it will be peak.
Sorry to interrupt, but Larry here. So once again, as I was making this way too long news video, the updates regarding the live stream and the countdown have transpired. But the unfortunate issue with there being even more breaking news is that I am very sick right now. So I am having Larry voice in for me during this part so I can still give the updated news, but you won't have to hear my tragically congested voice that sounds even more horrible than it already has in the video. So anyways, as you guys probably know, Boom decided to suddenly drop the Skibidi toilet, intercepted transmissions live stream, which has showed us a whole lot of cryptic things throughout its over 24-hour span of running so far. It has consisted of showing us old episode aftermaths with locations like the TV Man base in episode 77, the Parasite Research Lab in episode 35, and the Void Battlefield from episode 79. All of these being from the POV of a security camera. While all of this has been happening, there have been slight changes made over the span of the live stream. More locations are being slowly added or already existed ones are being changed. And there are even a few Easter eggs as we can see the prop hunt secret agent woman roaming around in this spot here. However, the biggest change which happened recently is that a countdown has formed, which started at 36 hours and is slowly counting down, and it can be safely assumed from posts from Ibio and Chasing Skylar that when this countdown reaches 0, we will get to see an episode of some sort, whether that's episode 80 or some kind of special episode that showcases the new engine that Boom is using. It is very safe to assume that quite the surprise is waiting for us when that timer reaches 0. But anyways, that is all of the extremely recent news, so you get to hear Shadow again. So Larry out.
Now since that is done with, guys, this is the end of the video. The Skibidi Toilet Dark Ages have been going on for a while now, but hopefully with the announcement that has come out, we can expect a new animation style and schedule for episode 80 to come out with soon, which will likely heal the community and be a massive comeback for Skibidi Toilet. Apologies for the massively delayed video though. I had a ton of real life events going on and the stuff with Boom happened, so getting the video out took longer than it should have. And there's the fact that I'm also fighting off some type of sickness right now, so that's been in the way as well. But, however, if you would like to support more news videos and uploads from in general, guys, please like and subscribe as it greatly helps me in this channel. So with that all being said, this has been Shadow Speakerman. Peace.